Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. Yes, Canada is a big place. I grew up on the East Coast. Our family first landed 400 years ago in Nova Scotia to help build the fur trade. And then we became farmers. My family had a 3-year contract and to build, and then decided to stay and became farmers. And my mother, so when I moved out west to Alberta, the Wild West, every time I phoned my mom, she always said, "You're too far away. You're too far away." I've been serving on the board or on the education committee for 3 years with GAN and having a blast there. I'm all about education because that's what agritourism, for me, is education, not marketing. It's education. And marketing and education is really the same thing, right? But I'd rather use the word education. So just in the next few minutes, we'll just kind of go over a quick snapshot of Canada, and we'll kind of go with this quick journey. So quick glance. So, we're large. We're the second biggest country on the planet, and we have 190 farms across 10 provinces and 3 territories. In the last 50 years, that number was double. We had close to 400,000 farms 50 years ago. So less farmers, and believe it or not, our farm land has been shrinking, but by 10%. So the farms are getting bigger in general. I'm out on the west, on the prairies, and so Alberta and Saskatchewan, 2 provinces out of 10, they are nearly 3/4 of the farmland in Canada. But funny enough, Ontario Ontario and Quebec together, they form 40% of the farms. So smaller farmland, only 12% of farmland, but they represent 40% of the farms in Canada. And so that reflects Quebec's and Ontario's diversified agricultural base, because their proximity to large urban populations, concentrations of smaller farms, that really lends itself to agritourism even more. And they've been doing it for quite some time. I remember as a kid, 50 years ago, doing a field trip, school field trip for a week. I was going to French school in New Brunswick, and so we always, every grade 9 class would go to spend some time and do some immersion in Quebec. And one of the memories that still I remember is visiting a farm. And there was 2 things I remember. One, there was apple trees. And they were big. They weren't the way we're growing them today. So you can climb them. So that's why, I really enjoyed climbing. The other thing was we sat down in a field. We had a long table dinner. I don't think they even called it that back then. And we ate some local produce. And so those are the memories that I have of Quebec. And so they've been doing agritourism. Canada's been doing agritourism for a long time, but at a much smaller scale and more simpler ways. And sometimes simple is better. So our diversity, our geographic diversity, means agritourism looks very different depending on where you are. There's a lot of similarities across the country. We all do a lot of the same things, but we also do a lot of different things too. A visitor experience in BC, British Columbia, Quebec, Atlantic Canada, Ontario, prairies may vary and may have very little in common in a sense, except for we're all rooted in agriculture and food, local food. So let's look at the agriculture foundation that supports the experiences. So Canada's agricultural sector is diverse. It's big. Across the country, we produce grains, oilseeds, livestock, dairy, fruit, vegetables, wine, maple, and honey products, and many, many specialty products. What makes agritourism interesting is that each of these sectors creates different visitor experiences. In many ways, Canada's agricultural diversity is one of our greatest agritourism assets. And that diversity becomes even more apparent when we look at how farmland is actually used. So yes, 153 million acres is where we're at now. That was close to 175, 50 years ago. So 60% of our farmland is cropland, while just under 27%, I'll get into statistics, I'm a statistics guy, 27% is pasture and grazing land. And it's really, what's interesting is how these lands uses translate into visitor experiences. So cropland often supports you-picks or pick-your-owns, orchards, sunflower fields, harvest festivals, for example. Pastures, they create opportunity for ranch stays, farm stays, livestock experiences, interactions, horseback riding. Woodlands, they support the nature-based experiences, sugar shacks in Quebec, in New Brunswick, where I grew up. While farmyards, very small percentage, I think 2%, becomes the setting for farm stores, which is really becoming, it's emerging more and more. Accommodations, dining experiences are happening. So in many ways, agricultural landscape determines the agritourism experience. So what does it look like in Canada? So if you ask 10 Canadians what is agritourism, you're going to get 10 different answers. Some would say farm stores, some will say farm direct sales, some would say farm stays, not as much, that's fairly new. Some would say wineries, breweries, distilleries, those are emerging for us. Festivals, we love festivals, fall festivals, berry festivals, pumpkin festivals in the fall, veggie harvesting festivals. It's a very busy time in late summer and early fall. Increasingly, we're seeing more on-farm table dining or farm-to-table, but I like to say on-farm-to-table dining. Accommodations. We're seeing more educational. A lot of the schools, which is very, very, very important. We need to share with our young folks to understand food and connect or reconnect or stay connected. We're seeing our indigenous cousins tourism experiences is emerging, and that's quite exciting. So most Canadian agritourism businesses are still small, family operated enterprises that complement farming. They complement farming activities rather than replacing them. So we're kind of different. Farms and tourism are really are different, and so the classic tourism versus the classic agriculture. So as a personal experience, 2 summers ago, I spent my summer weekends volunteering on farms, different kinds of farms across Alberta, to immerse myself, as well as I'm a researcher. And I did help where they needed me. So I did all kinds of stuff, some dirty work as well as some fun work, doing some wine samplings and things like that. But I spoke to the visitors, and we had visitors, locals from rural, farmers. They're curious. Farmers always want to see what other farmers are doing and see what they can learn, as well as folks from the city, urbanites. So whether it's a berry farm, a beef operation, a winery, a pumpkin, a veggie festival, what stood out was the visitors weren't just buying products, they were buying connection. Connecting to the land, connecting to the farm families. It was therapeutic. And one of the farms that I stayed at, Arden, she would when we'd have our, at the end of the day, we'd sit down and kind of review the day and how to go. And usually we talk about the challenges and how could we fix those. But she'd always say, people are coming to me and they just say, thank you for doing this. Not just, thank you, I'm on my way to my car. No, they're looking at them in the eye and they're holding their hands and going, thank you for doing this. These are farmers that are saying this to them. These are folks from the city that are saying that. And so I asked Arden, so who are they? Why are they? I don't know why. Like, she's stunned. So she's not asking. She's not asking those questions. But I just think that they're getting reconnected. So how big is agritourism? Well, that's now here we're getting into some challenges. So we can measure agriculture, we can measure tourism, but we struggle in measuring agritourism. At a national level, we don't yet have a consistent system for tracking farm visitation, agritourism revenue, or economic impact. We're kind of guessing. We're using anecdotal. We're using observations. It's a start, but it's hard to make a business case, especially when you're looking for support, when you're advocating. But we know it's growing. Everybody agrees. They see it. They know participation by farms and farm families is increasing. And we know that the governments are taking notice, and their tourism organizations are investing in the development, early days. So we don't know how big it is in Canada. I'm embarrassed to say that. Definitions and policy. So some countries do have definitions, national definitions. They have national strategies. They have national legislation and laws supporting agritourism. Canada's not yet at a national level. So we operate more on a regional, provincial level with strategies and industry leadership. The good news is collaboration is increasing. So across Canada, we're seeing agriculture, tourism, municipalities, economic development, destination marketing organizations, management organizations, and the ag industry associations themselves, the grassroots, the farm folks, beginning to work more closely together. So a few provinces that are really taking some significant steps. So Quebec has been long recognized in agritourism. They have long recognized agritourism with its agricultural land use legislation and has developed strong provincial support and significant investment for agritourism and food tourism development. And so that's been going on for decades. More recently, in 2024, Ontario passed the Growing Agritourism Act, the first agritourism-specific legislation in Canada focused on liability and inherent risks. This was a major milestone for the sector in Ontario. Many operators, across Canada, liability concerns have long been a barrier for participation. So challenges. So we talk, when we talk to operators, farm operators, farm families across Canada, most of the challenges they identify are surprisingly similar. Insurance, liability, regulations, labor shortages, and I hear this everywhere. I hear this everywhere here across the globe. So it's nice to have friends with these challenges, and we have opportunities to learn from folks that are leading here. Succession planning, seasonality, and data gaps, information. What's interesting is, the challenge is not convincing people to come farm visits. The challenge is helping farmers become ready and able to host visitors successfully. Opportunities, well, they're big, they're significant. So consumers are increasing, we know people are looking for a connection. They want authentic. They're hungry for that. They want to meet producers, as I mentioned earlier. They want to learn from them. They want meaningful connections with the people and the place. They want to get a sense of place. And agritourism helps farms diversify their revenue while supporting their local food systems and rural economies. We keep hearing that during this conference. So we need to keep repeating that to the policymakers. to leaders. We're also seeing tremendous opportunities through Indigenous tourism, international collaboration, and stronger partnerships between agriculture and tourism. So where to go from here is, I'll go quickly here, looking ahead is, no surprises, 5 areas, is better measurement, shared definitions and best practices across the country, and all of these are happening. They're starting to happen, it's emerging. Supportive policy, visitor readiness and training. We need to be ready. We can't oversell. If we make promises and we can't deliver, we're going to disappoint the consumer, the visitors. So we really got to slow down and think about capacity building. And stronger national collaboration, and that has begun, and that's very promising. So Canada already has the farms, the food, the landscape, and the stories. Our opportunity now is to organize, to measure, and grow agritourism as a recognized sector. So in many ways, Canada's agritourism journey can still be described by the phrase you've seen throughout the presentation: emerging, organizing, growing. So in closing, the journey is still unfolding, and with the help and support and the inspiration from GAN, the Global Agritourism Network, we have a unique opportunity to learn, to share ideas, learn from each other, and to help shape the future of agritourism together. So thank you.